I was preparing my sermon for the Sunday service when the frantic knock came at my office door. Sister Lydia burst in, her face pale and her words tumbling out in a rush. "Pastor, there's trouble at the market square. A mob is about to lynch a boy for stealing." I barely had time to grab my Bible before heading out. The market square was chaotic, buzzing with angry voices and raised fists. At the center of the commotion was a scrawny boy, no older than 16, his clothes tattered and face streaked with tears. A vendor held up a bag of rice, accusing him of theft, while others shouted for justice. "Stop!" I shouted as I waded into the crowd, raising my hands. My voice, by God's grace, carried above the clamor. Violence is not the answer. Let us not destroy a life over a mistake. The crowd hesitated, murmuring but eventually parting as I shielded the boy with my body. He clung to my leg like a drowning man to a life raft. I convinced the vendor to let the matter rest, promising to replace the stolen goods and take responsibility for the boy. When we got back to the church, the boy collapsed at my feet, sobbing. His name was David. Between hiccuping breaths, he confessed that hunger had driven him to steal. His parents had died, and he'd been living on the streets for months. "Please, sir," he begged, his voice raw with desperation. "I promise I won't steal again. Just help me find a job. Any job. I want to work, not beg." Something about his sincerity moved me. I saw not a thief but a lost child yearning for a second chance. Against the advice of some church members, I gave him a job as a cleaner in the church and arranged for him to stay in the small guest quarters behind the sanctuary. His salary was more than generous, enough to live comfortably and save for his future. At first, David flourished. He was diligent in his duties, always the first to arrive and the last to leave. He even joined the choir, his clear tenor voice lifting during worship. The congregation slowly warmed to him, and I thanked God for his transformation. But one Sunday evening, everything changed. As I returned to the church after visiting a sick parishioner, I found Deacon James waiting for me at the gate. His face was grim. "Pastor," he said, "we've had a theft." I hurried inside to find the church safe forced open. A significant amount of money, offerings meant for a local orphanage, was gone. My heart sank. Deep down, I already knew who the culprit was. We found David in his room, packing a bag. He froze when he saw me, guilt etched across his face. "I'm sorry," he stammered. "I don't know what came over me." "David," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow. "Why? You had everything. A roof over your head, a good salary, a fresh start. Why would you do this?" He couldn't look me in the eye. I don't know, Pastor. The temptation was too strong. I wanted to shout, to let my disappointment spill out. But instead, I prayed silently for strength. "You've betrayed not just me, but God and this community," I said finally. "Do you realize the weight of what you've done?" He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Please forgive me. I'll return the money. Just don't hand me over to the police." Against my better judgment, I agreed. David returned the stolen funds, but the trust we had placed in him was shattered. I let him stay the night, but told him he had to leave in the morning. As I sat in my study that night, I wrestled with my emotions. I had tried to save David, to give him a future filled with hope. Yet he had chosen to fall back into darkness. Had I failed him? Or had he failed himself? The next day, David left. I haven't seen him since. I still pray for him, though, asking God to touch his heart and guide him to a better path. This experience reminded me that even with the best intentions, we cannot save someone who isn't ready to change. Only God can do that. And so I carry on, trusting that my duty is to plant seeds of kindness and hope, even if I never see them bloom.